Hello everyone and welcome to the last spotlight in September. Time flies, okay? October is just around the corner. 2025. So this is a really great spotlight because I'm going to update you. We did not have a spotlight last week. I was trying to get a pre-recorded one done, but there was just so much going on. We were recording so much stuff, I just couldn't get it out. So we just had to skip last week for the spotlight. But we're back to our weekly schedule every Sunday. And this is really interesting because I have to update you. It's been 2 weeks since there's been a spotlight, so I have to update you. For those of you who have not yet subscribed to FARSIGHT'S.com, let me tell you what you've been missing for just the last 2 weeks. So we're constantly putting stuff up and doing stuff. So I'm going to be upgrading you with regard to what's happening and also telling you about some major announcement. This is the major announcement. So there's so much censorship going on right now in the mainstream news, like CNN, BBC, all the major news in terms of what's really happening. Stuff in the world is spinning out of control faster than you can believe. The stuff in the war in Ukraine is getting ready to spill out into Europe. The Israeli-Iranian stuff is about to spark off again. I'm expecting that to happen. It's probably, I guess, a good optimal time, and it would be between before the middle of October, before the end of October, with a higher probability near the middle of October, and so we really, that's going to happen too. Iran probably could defeat Israel completely, except that the U.S. is going to be expected to come into the game, and that's the only way Iran could be knocked back. Because it's a simple thing of Iran has tens of thousands of these missiles it can fly, and it can just overwhelm the Iron Dome of Israel, and they can just keep on pounding. That would have happened in the last 12-day war that they had between Israel and Iran, but Iran backed down because the U.S. was going to intervene, and Iran did not want to get into a confrontation with the United States. However, now Iran supposedly has the backing of China and Russia, and possibly North Korea. So we don't know what's going to happen. It's a big gamble. It's on both sides. But Israel probably, in my opinion, cannot win that war between Iran and Israel without the United States' help. The U.S. has to help. Now that's happened in a number of wars that Israel has had, that they would have been defeated had there not been U.S. help. So Israel really depends on that U.S. help for that. Now, I have not gone into this channel why the U.S. Gives so much help to Israel. You have to think about it. Why does the United States give so many billions of dollars and so much defense stuff to Israel? Now, the party line is, the storyline is because of a sympathy with regard to Jews who escaped from the Holocaust. Now, the Holocaust was real. I mean, 6 million Jews were killed. It was a big deal. And that's really what was the primary impetus to make Israel into a state. But there were also 11 million Slavs that died, and we don't even notice that in the United States. In Russia, they have a special day for remembering the 11 million Slavs that died. And in Rwanda, there was 800 to 900,000 Tutsis in support of Hutus that were hacked to death in the not too distant past, and we don't make any mention of that. And there are, throughout history, been lots of different things that have happened in different places, and we don't make any mention of that. So, you sort of say, why is Israel treated differently? Is it just because of a sympathetic understanding of the horror of the Holocaust, which was real? And you have to sort of say why. There's got to be some logical reason why the U.S. put so many billions of dollars into Israel and defends it at all costs, types of things. I have not gone into that, but there is practical reasons for it. I've always understood those practical reasons. The world is a very complicated place, but it's a sensitive topic. And So I haven't really gone into that, but one thing I can derive from that understanding is that the United States is not going to let Israel go down the tubes. So if Iran looks like it's going to be able to wipe Israel off the map, the U.S. will intervene. So that war between Israel and Iran is going to probably blow up to be really big, and the U.S. will get involved. The real question is, will Russia get involved, and will China get involved, and so on. But what's going on in Ukraine similarly looks like it's going to blow the cork, so to speak. And I don't see any real stuff that Russia is doing to directly provoke NATO or the United States into a military confrontation. They seem to be wanting to avoid that. But I see a lot of things happening on the West side, Ukrainian side, and NATO side, and U.S. side, that seems to suggest that there are elements on that side that want that to happen, that want to provoke that to occur. So and there's a lot of crazy stuff that's coming out in the media painting Russia as the total boogeyman. There's very little sympathy for the Russian understanding of why the Ukraine war happens in the first place. So it's a real powder keg right now, because forces are being pushed to create what looks like a World War III type of Armageddon, and that's what our remote viewing sessions have shown. The real question is, when does that happen? And then there's the problem of the U.S. economy that's going to crash. It has to crash. And exactly how it crashes and what happens, it's unclear. But the dollar isn't really worth anything right now, and the other countries are trying to unload their dollars. Now, they're trying not to unload them all at once, because none of them want the dollar to crash immediately and become like a penny stock. So, because then they lose everything. So they're slowly trying to transfer stuff out and put it into gold and Bitcoin, things like that, and BRICS. And so, but the United States is not stupid. They know that is happening. So the real question is, what are they doing to sort of counter that? And one theory is that they're trying to create a digital currency, a stable coin for the US dollar, and then let the regular dollar go. Just let it be devalued and have everything transferred into the digital currency. And then they'd be able to pay off the entire debt with dollars that are only worth pennies. So it's unclear if that's really what's happening, but there's got to be something going on, because the United States cannot pay that $37 trillion debt that's increasing by $1 or $2 trillion every year. So that's a cork that's going to pop. So the real question is, when does the trigger happen? But what you're not seeing in the news, if you look at the news, you see a lot of distracting things about a shooting in a church or shooting in a school or something like that, or things that sort of distract you away from what's really going on. And so what we give you at Farsight is a way to see behind the scenes what's really going on, including the extraterrestrial element. We try to explain what's really going on from the extraterrestrial point of view. So what I want to talk to you about first is the change in the vault. Now, the vault is something that's on our regular website, FARSIGHT.org. And we have had all of our transcripts for all of our mysteries projects, well over 100 of those mysteries projects available, and they're specially designed to be read by AI. So you can download them, and then you can have your AI read them, and then you can talk to your AI, be it ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, Gemini, whatever, about the contents of the transcripts and of the project, so you can get an idea. And then you can go over to farsightprime.com and watch the thing, knowing that the thing is real. We even include statistics in the transcripts for all the mysteries projects, for example. You may say some of them seem esoteric, but we have ways of showing that the stuff is accurate. And statistical stuff, that's really rock solid. And what you have to do then is have that explained to you by your AI, and then you can go watch it and say, wow, this is real. We also put up the ET board meetings that we have here at Farsight, and we put up the conversations with Harvey. However, what's completely new that you haven't seen since the last spotlight, which was 2 weeks ago, is the deep news. We just now put up the vault of all of the deep news. Now, those are totally verifiable targets. Totally verifiable. I mean, those are deep news. Those are current events type of targets. And we had the transcripts up so your AI can look at everything that was... See, AIs can't watch video yet, so they have to get the transcripts. But they can download you can download the transcripts and then upload them to your AI, and then the AI can read it and know everything, every single word that was said in all of the data. And all of the data at Farsight is collected under totally blind conditions. So it's completely objective. And your AI can look at it and know that there was no bias in any of it. And these were the perceptions. It's a data set that's unbelievable. Now let me show you. Let me show you where the vault is. We now have 3 vault pages because the transcripts are so huge. There's so many of them. So let me switch over now to the to our regular website. This is farsight.org, farsight.org. And if you look over here at the vault, on the left-hand side, you'll see in the introduction section. So you have to open up the introduction section, and then you see the vault. Now I'm going to click on the vault, and here you'll see all of the mysteries projects, and you can see how many mysteries projects we had. There's like zillions of them, okay? And then you have 2 other vaults that are linked at the top. You have the deep news vault and the communications vault. So I'm going to click on that, communications vault, and here you have the ET board meetings, and you have conversations with Harvey. Now I'm going to go back, click on the back, and I look at the other one, which is the deep news at the top. You see the deep news stuff. So what I'm going to do here is click on deep news, and look at this, everybody. This is the transcripts from all of our deep news projects. Look at that, folks. Just take a look at that. Do you realize how many sessions we put up with regard to current events? Totally verifiable current events. So if you're ever wondering, like, you know, have you ever checked that? Did your stuff ever turn out to be real? Whatever. You have the transcripts word for word, and there's statistics that are in those transcripts. You can click on the download link on the right-hand side for any of them or all of them, and upload them to your AI and talk it over, okay? And then you can go over to farsightprime.com. Many of these are up on YouTube as well, and you can go over to farsightprime.com and watch them. They're nicely organized on farsightprime.com. Anyway, let me go on the back button again, and just to show you, you click on the introduction, and down at the vault, you click on the vault, and that's when you get the complete thing. It starts with the mysteries, and then at the top you see links for deep news and communication vault. So we have 3 vaults up there right now. Okay, so let me bring myself back. We're also going to be starting a new vault soon called Solos. We have our remote viewers are so good, of such high quality now, that they can really handle projects all by themselves. And so we're starting a new thing called Solos. And the Solos are 1 viewer, 1 video, and we're starting to publish those. And that's good because it produces more per, you know, more output per month, so you have more to look forward to in the month. And the Solos we just started, and so we have 2 Solos up now, and we're going to eventually put up a vault for that. The transcripts are ready for that, but we're waiting to, you know, gather a few more. But we put 2 up, and we're basically putting up 2 videos. Actually, if you include the spotlight, sort of a minimum of 3 videos a week, and that's a lot of stuff for a very small group to do. I hope you realize the magnitude of what we do, plus the transcripts. You don't have that anywhere else. Period. So anyway, and those people who say, hey, you know, for example, on my Wikipedia page, which is sort of scandalous, but on my Wikipedia page, it talks about some guy, a professor at my university, who said I didn't allow my stuff to be examined scientifically for curious reasons. That's a very small part of a larger story that I'm not going to go into because I don't want to involve my university in any of this, but it's more scandalous than you can imagine in terms of what happened with that particular guy. And basically, it takes time to collect data, and it takes time to analyze the data, and it takes time to make those data available so they can be analyzed in good form. And now we have all of our data, every single word of all of our data, all collected totally blind, available for anybody to analyze. So this is a real big thing. It takes time to do good science, and you can't rush it. Okay, so anyway, the vault is there. All right. Anyway, so I want to talk today about 4 projects. These are 4 projects that you may not have seen because we put them up for the last 2 weeks, and they're up on FarsightPrime.com. By the way, when you go to FarsightPrime.com and you sign up, allow us to, send you notifications and use our apps also. The app is the Farsight app, which is Farsight on the Google Play Store and Farsight TV on the Apple Store. Those are our apps. They're some of the most solid apps you get on the web. I like them better than some of the major streaming services. They're really solid and they're really great. And they allow you to run any of our videos on your phone and project them to your TV. And that's how I watch them on the TV, just projecting them from my phone. And these projects that I'm going to show you right now, we announced them on FarsightPrime.com using our app and on the mailing list on FarsightPrime.com. But I want you to also please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, because these live streams and other things we put up on YouTube, we really rely on to do things like these live streams and our other videos that we put up on YouTube. And when you subscribe to our YouTube channel, please remember to hit that notifications bell. That's the only way YouTube gives you anything regarding what's actually happening here. So that's when it notifies you. Just subscribing doesn't do anything. And then please go to farsight.org, where I just showed you the vault, and at the very top you'll see the newsletter. Sign up for the newsletter. That's our regular newsletter, and our newsletter is what we do. We use to announce everything that we actually do. And everything we put up on FarsightPrime.com, they do their own email for that to announce those things. And then anyway, so those 3 things are what you really need to do. Sign up for FarsightPrime.com, sign up for our email newsletter on Farsight.org, and then when you subscribe to our channel on YouTube, please remember to click on that notifications bell. So let's go into the 4 projects that you may not have seen yet from over the last 2 weeks only. I don't know how many of you are biblical scholars, but the Bible is great. It's got so many stories in it, and the stories that you say, people who don't think of anything about ancient texts say those are just fantasies that some crazy person in a cave wrote up. They don't mean anything. It's not true. The ancients had experiences, and they didn't know how to understand those experiences, so they wrote those experiences down. And they put them in texts, and those things later became books in the Bible. But it's like if you go to a cave and you see scrawlings on the wall of the cave by ancient cave people, it doesn't mean that they never saw those animals that they are drawing, that they never killed those animals for food, that they never had any experiences that are similar to what those drawings say. They experienced things, and those things are sometimes lights in the sky, sometimes extraterrestrial things. They just had to write them down. So when you see stuff from the past and you see mainstream people just dismissing it, just don't go down that rabbit hole. They're crazy, those people. Mainstream people their fundamental thinking process is denial. Okay. So, what I'm going to be talking to you now first is about the Bible. In particular, Ezekiel. That's the book of Ezekiel. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Ezekiel, because we have a solo project that came out with Shantae as the viewer, and it was on something that's described in Ezekiel. Now, let me tell you about Ezekiel himself. Who's he? Okay. Now, this is from Google AI. So I'm just collecting this from Google AI, so you know you can replicate this yourself. Ezekiel was an Israelite prophet during the Babylonian exile, whose name means God makes strong. Now, he's known for his visions, particularly the divine chariot and the valley of dry bones, and for delivering God's message of judgment for Israel's rebellion and a future promise of restoration and a new covenant. The book of Ezekiel in the Old Testament is named after him. Now, let me give you a little bit of insight into the type of ministry he had. In terms of the Babylonian exile, Ezekiel prophesied while living in exile in Babylon, an event that occurred after the destruction of Jerusalem and its temple. And God's message of judgment and hope was that his prophecies served as a message of punishment for Israel's unfaithfulness and a promise of future renewal and restoration. This is from the book of Ezekiel. And in terms of his visions and symbolic actions, Ezekiel's ministry was characterized by dramatic visions, such as the vision of the four-faced creatures and this is important, the wheels. The wheels. And symbolic actions like his vision of the dry bones and his prophecy about the future temple. And as a priest in exile, he was a priest who was called by God to deliver messages, which he did even during difficult circumstances, however he thought of as God, okay, whatever God was as he saw it. And in the book of Ezekiel, it's a testament to his faithfulness, because the book is considered a testament to God's faithfulness as a model for believers in dark times. And the contents of the book is basically, the book is divided into three parts generally. And the prophecies against Judah before Jerusalem's fall, the prophecies concerning the Gentiles, and prophecies about Israel's restoration and a new beginning. Now, in terms of symbolic imagery, key symbolic themes include God's presence in exile, the new heart, and the restoration of the temple. So that's the long and short of Ezekiel in the book of Ezekiel. Okay? All right. Now let's talk about what we investigated with remote viewing in one of our solos, and the remote viewer was Shantae. So let me first tell you what the target is, okay? It really focuses on this idea of the Ophanim, okay? Now, the Ophanim, it's O-P-H-A-N-I-M, Ophanim. To perceive and describe the full structural form, function, and context of what is referred to in the book of Ezekiel as the Ophanim. Explore both Ezekiel's mind at the time of his experience with the Ophanim and the leadership behind the Ophanim. Now, Ezekiel refers to the wheels using the Hebrew word ophan, which is a plural of ophanim, which literally means the wheel. So with this one, we're talking about the wheel. What the heck is the wheel? Okay? And with this, you get a better idea of what Ezekiel was thinking when he was talking about God and stuff like that. So first I'm going to read, this is from the English Standard Version of the Bible. This is Ezekiel 1, chapter 1, verses 15 through 21. So let's get an idea of what Ezekiel actually said, okay? And this is the vision of the wheels. What the heck is the wheels? You know, Ophanim. Now, as I looked, okay, starting with chapter 1, verse 15. Now, as I looked at the living creatures, I saw a wheel on the earth beside the living creatures, one for each of the four of them. As For the appearance of the wheels and their construction, their appearance was like the gleaming of beryl, B-E-R-Y-L, and the four had the same likeness, their appearance and construction being, as it were, a wheel within a wheel. Now, when they went in any of their four directions without turning as they went. And their rims were tall and awesome. And the rims of all four were full of eyes all around. And when the creatures went, the wheels went beside them. And when the living creatures rose from the earth, the wheels rose. Wherever the Spirit wanted to go, they went. And the wheels rose along with them, for the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheel. Ophanim. When those went, these went. And when those stood, these stood. And when those rose from the earth, the wheels rose along with them, for the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. Now, let's go to Ezekiel chapter 10, verse 9 through 13. Again, this is the English Standard Version of the Bible. Ezekiel chapter 10, verses 9 through 13. Okay? This is where he gives a detailed description of the wheels. Again, and I looked, and behold, there were 4 wheels beside the cherubim, one beside each cherub, and the appearance of the wheels was like sparkling beryl. B-E-R-Y-L, beryl. And as for their appearance, the 4 had the same likeness. They all looked alike, all wheels, as if a wheel were within a wheel. And as for their appearance, when they went in any of their 4 directions without turning as they went, but in whatever direction the front wheel faced, the others follows, without turning as they went. And their whole body, their rims, and their spokes, their wings, and the wheels were full of eyes all around, the wheels that the 4 of them had. As for the wheels, they were called by my hearing the whirling wheels. Okay, he felt they were described as the whirling wheels, spinning. You're talking about spinning discs with lights. Basically, that's what you're talking about. All right, so that's the first solo that we're talking about here. Now, let's actually tell you a little bit about how this actually went. Remember that all the sessions that are done at Farsight, solo sessions or deep news sessions or mystery sessions, anything that we do at Farsight, they're always done totally blind. Okay? And these projects, if you look at all of them together, they're very critical for understanding both our hidden past and the future. And together they tell you a story that you simply won't find anywhere else. So let's actually talk about what we got when you look at these solos. So let's look at this particular solo of by Shantae with Ezekiel. And basically you're getting something that has this essential element. You got to see it to believe it. But Shantae perceived a male subject, which is the analog of Ezekiel, sitting at a base surface, receiving unwanted or forced communication from a non-surface structure. So there was Ezekiel on the ground. Boom. He didn't want this vision, but he got it. And she describes a grand, glowing, palace-like form corresponding to the Oraphim, wheels within wheels full of eyes. And subject A was pressured to gain trust of his community with ideas or plans that he would not have invented himself. Classic prophet receives the divine guidance type of thing, but this happened as a coercive extraterrestrial interaction. That's how this happened. Subject A, of course, is Ezekiel. All right, now, subject X was the leader behind the structure. Subject X appeared to be a base human model with shifting form. So it looked humanoid, able to absorb conscious power from willing participants. And it was likened by Shantae to be an investor who was taking people's wealth. That's how it sort of comes across in terms of the mental feel of the guy's consciousness. Now, the non-surface structure she called non-surface structure Q, housed a diverse crowd, white and gold hues, rounded shapes, calm but tense atmosphere, all mixed with subtle coercion. Okay, so let's talk about the importance of the mission. This reframes the scripture. What Ezekiel saw as divine wheels was an encounter with powerful beings harvesting consciousness. Did you get that? Let me repeat it. What Ezekiel saw was divine wheels was an encounter with powerful beings harvesting consciousness. Our data shows that the mechanics of how prophetic visions could be orchestrated by non-human intelligences to shape religions and societies is done. Okay, that's the basic summary of that particular project. So if you haven't seen it, you got to see it. It's big. Okay, let's talk about the next solo project that was published since over the last 2 weeks. And this is by Entisam. And this is a project called El Castillo. And that's El is Spanish. Castillo is Castillo. And that, in English, is the Temple of Kukulkan. Kukulkan. Kukulcan. And that's in Chichen Itza. Itza. Inside Mexico. Okay, so this temple, the Temple of El Castillo. So now this project here for El Castillo, folks, it's a pyramid. It's a big, bloody pyramid. It's just a big pyramid. And it has huge blocks in it, and the standard questions are, how the heck did they build that, these primitive people, way back in the day? But it's a huge temple. It's a huge temple of the Temple of Kukulkan, and it's in Chichen Itza in Mexico. So let me tell you what the target is. So the target is to perceive El Castillo, which is the Temple of Kukulkan, and it's located in Chichen Itza, Mexico, during the height of its original intended use. Now, it was to determine, this is the target goal, to determine its actual function, operation, and associated activity at that time. Now, the focus was the uppermost platform during its peak use. That was focus 1. Now, there was 2 focuses. So focus 2 is the inner chamber or substructure beneath the pyramid. And they have done lots of non-invasive sonar radar type of investigation. So there's an inner structure or chamber inside the temple, inside the pyramid. Now, the basic findings that Entisam had, and you got to see it to believe it. It's just unbelievable. Always done totally blind. Okay? She described a stepped pyramid-like structure with ornate surface rituals. Now, you want verifiable confirmation. The remote viewing works, is real. I mean, the target is a pyramid. The pyramid of El Castillo, the Temple of Kukulkan, and that's what she drew nicely. A good one, a good copy, good sketch of the whole thing. So you got to see it. The subjects on the platform were wearing ornate jewelry and clothing, chanting and bowing. She drew those things. A clear 2-tier system was seen, powerful versus the vulnerable. Humiliation of a subservient class. That's what comes across in this. Okay? Now, below the surface, Entisam perceived reptilian beings overseeing the humans with tech objects disguised as stone and a sense of secrecy. Now, the construction was shown as huge blocks floating into place via energetic levitation, implying non-human involvement. I mean, that's described right in the session, and that's the only way those blocks could have been moved. Now, she also describes a flash vision of gold and non-surface structures, which echoes Farsight's recurring theme of gold and energetics at ET-controlled sites. Let's talk about the importance of this mission. It reframes archaeology. So, the first solo reframed spirituality to religious texts, theological stuff, and this one reframes archaeology. El Castillo wasn't just a ceremonial temple built mysteriously by primitives. It wasn't just a ceremonial temple, it functioned as a control node for both humans and non-humans. This solo session shows how our new format can expose hidden aspects of World Heritage sites. So, this is big. This is really big. You got to see it. Okay, now I'm going to move on to yet another project that you may have missed, so you need to see it. This is one of our deep news projects. You can go to see it on FarsightPrime.com. This is the first one I'm going to talk about is the U.S. economic collapse. Now remember, for these deep news projects, the transcripts are up. Now the solos don't have the transcripts up. They're ready, but we haven't finished uploading them because we're waiting to have a few more solos so that the vault page looks a little bit more populated. But the deep news, all of the deep news stuff, have the transcripts already there. So with regard to this one, this is the upcoming U.S. economic collapse. And that's in our deep news project. That's with Aziz Brown. Now let me describe what the target is, okay? The target is to determine the most significant event that would help understand the nature of an economic collapse or restructuring of the U.S. government. And the focus is from May 2025 through the end of 2026. Now, time is always weird with remote viewing. Remote viewing goes after events. It doesn't go after numbers on a timeline. Dates don't really work, but they have an intent associated with those dates. So approximately we're dealing with May 2025 through December 2026, plus or minus, because really we're going after what the intent is of what's actually going to be happening. So the restructuring or collapse could happen a bit after 2026, but it's generally during this time frame that we're looking for whatever type of collapse is going to happen. And the reason we did this in our Deep News project is because it looks like the collapses, the economic collapse or restructuring is inevitable. I mean, the debt is just simply unsustainable. I mean, $2 trillion of new debt every year. What can you do? I mean, it just is unsustainable. And already you see people taking, countries moving their money out of the dollar to put it someplace safe because everybody realizes the dollar is going to crash at some point. Okay, so the real question is, what's the most significant event that would help us understand the nature of the economic collapse or restructuring? So it doesn't have to be a collapse, it could just be the restructuring, but something is going to happen, and what can we see that will give an indication of the result of that type of thing happening? So the target had two focuses. The first focus, this is Aziz's session. There were formal political gatherings with speeches. There was a few subjects we went after. Subject A was nervous, but hiding unease. Words felt hollow. The subject A was a leader in that whole thing, and it was like a politician or a political appointee type of guy that was saying stuff, but nobody was really believing it. So the words were hollow. We went after a group, and these were strategic elites behind subject A. And then group R was the public absorbing the facade. And so in the scene, we had a couple scenes one involving a fiery speech, an accusatory blame towards distant groups. It wasn't us who did it, it was those people who did it. Public reaction, fear of a mix of fear and apprehension, speculation. And there was also associated imagery of fiery destruction in urban areas. You got to see this session yourself to understand it. Now focus 1 was 2025 approximately. Focus 2 was 2026. Now in 2026, which was focus 2, there was a heavy military presence on the streets everywhere. Heavy vehicles, uniformed subjects, trench-like environments. Subject B, with a sense of an economic type of leader type guy. Calm, stoic, emotionally detached, focused on numbers, not the human impact. So they were talking numbers, basically, and avoiding sort of what it means to be a human in all this time. High-level formal meetings, contrasting ornate versus muted attire. And a scene R was basically, it was a major scene that shows us, the result of the economic restructuring or collapse. It was devastation and escalation. That was the basic idea of it. Symbolic of militarization following a collapse. You got to see the session. Just go to FarsightPrime.com and look at Deep News series and watch this thing. The distinctive feature of this session is political defection and blame shifting in 2025. So 2025, it was, blame shifting, and it wasn't me, it was them, and things like that. The political deflection, and then civil unrest tied to public anger. But in 2026, you get a move towards militarization and policing. And we see the basics of that starting now. Already the U.S. government is starting to move troops into major cities. You also see the conflict between the corporations and the state. It's a juggernaut, united in a facade, the corporations and the state, but fragmented in reality. Okay, so if I was to say what the importance of this session is, you got to see it to understand it. Aziz's totally blind session shows collapse not as a sudden chaos, but as a managed theater. Politicians deflect, corporations maneuver, militarization follows, and this is our first real-time view of the United States economic collapse as it unfolds. Well, for such a big thing as this, you want to get, a second opinion. Like you go to the doctor and the doctor says, looks like you're already dead. And you say, I'd like a second opinion on that. Okay, so let's get a second opinion. So Shantae also did a session on that, and that's the Deep News, U.S. Economic Collapse, May 2025 to December 2026. And this is with Shantae. So it's the same target as Aziz had, but this time Shantae is doing it. And again, this is done under totally blind conditions, and no one spoke to anyone else about any of this stuff related to the project during the data collection phase. So these things were collected totally independent of one another. Okay, so the target was the same as Aziz, to determine the most significant event that would help understand the nature of an economic collapse or restructuring of the United States government. And again, the focus was May 2025 to December 2026, plus or minus. Okay, focus 1, she went after a structure Q, and it was like a palace, mixing leisure and work. It was a nice big building. Subjects were in negotiation, trading, scenes. There was karmic consequences returning to elites. Subject X, she went after two male figures with a long history shifting from alliance to open conflict. And personal animosity was overwhelming in the political representation. These people were not so happy with each other. In focus 2, 2026, She got an urban area in decline, subjects working without any luxury, heavy surveillance with surface and non-surface structures, mental, energetic subjects. She got a focus on what we called subject D. It's all explained in the video. A wide-bodied male in formal attire, intent on ownership, wealth, control through a strict regime. You can probably put two and two together on who we're talking about there. And then scene Y was the forced removal and exclusion of subjects in an ornate interior. People being kicked out, sort of. So let's talk about the distinctive features here. There was economic consequences that was recycling back on elites. The imagery was for movement, a movement called Movement F. This is all done under blind conditions, so they just identify things by letters. The imagery of Movement F was resembling a volatile stock market, and she actually draws the volatile graph of the stock market type thing. More stable in 2025, and way more volatile in 2026. You got to see it. You got to see it. She draws the graph, people. The elite conflict becomes personal, undermining institutional stability. 2026, there was heavy surveillance and authoritarian control, with the public largely unaware of what's going on. So the importance, if I were to focus on the importance of Shantae's session, it really converges with Aziz's. So it's great to have two different people looking at the same thing and getting their own perspective on what they think is going on. So you have two blind remote viewers, the same target, same time frames, both pointing to collapse, restructuring, surveillance, and authoritarian control by 2026. This is the end of 2026. This is exactly the kind of independent confirmation that Farsight exists to produce. So let's sort of pull things together and look at the 4 projects that I've just described. So if I were to look at the arcs covering the 4 projects, the arc, sort of how to group it all together, what are we basically seeing from these 4 diverse projects? Well, with the El Castillo thing, we're looking into the ancient past. That temple, pyramid type thing. You see ritual and control through fear and sacrifice. Now, if you jump up to the religious vision of the Ophanim, Ezekiel's vision, you get manipulation through awe-inspiring spectacle, but still manipulation. Poor Ezekiel. He didn't know what was happening to him. And you get, with the economic ones, modern collapse. Economic collapse sessions. Manipulation through politics, economics, and surveillance. Okay, it's the same story. You get elites, often guided by outside forces, using ritual, vision, and fear to keep humanity controlled. From pyramids to prophets to politicians. Friends, this is why the Farsight mission matters. Blind remote viewing sessions reveal that hidden continuity of control that spans centuries and shows us where the world is heading right now. Friends, these 4 projects, and I'm just selecting these 4. We've done hundreds, and the transcripts are up in the vault. You can analyze them with your AI, and you can't get this anywhere else. This is wonderfully fun to do, and then you can actually see the sessions yourself so you know it's real. But these 4 sessions alone, these 4, just in the last 2 weeks since the last spotlight, that's how much we're doing. And what you're missing if you're not subscribed to FarsightPrime.com, these 4 projects alone are a glimpse, just a glimpse of the vault that we have up on farsight.org. The full transcripts, the videos themselves, and the data are on FarsightPrime.com, on FarsightPrime.com. The whole videos, you can see them. And if you're not subscribed, you're missing the deeper picture. You're not getting it from the mainstream news. You're getting it here. And from this, you can reinterpret everything you're getting on the mainstream news to essentially free yourself from their hypnotic control. Farsight is the only place where you can watch blind remote viewing sessions that are totally objective because they're done under blind conditions, applied across history, religion, and current events, and verify it for yourself. I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting Farsight. Together we are uncovering, piece by piece, the true history and destiny of our planet. Stay tuned, because our story, the story of you and me, Farsight, and planet Earth, is only just beginning. And we will be seeing you all, of course, next week on the next Spotlight, as we continue to change the world. As it burns, we proceed and explain what's happening. See you all again in a week, everybody, at Farsight Spotlight. It's been great. We had a great turnout today, and I want to thank you all for watching. See you next week.